Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. What a treat. We've got another guest today, and it is Alexia Vernon from Step Into Your Moxie. This is both her website as well as her book, and we'll be getting into how to shift the inner patterns that keep women in particular playing small, and how to help clients really name what they want, claim what they want, and use their voice with courage, all as part of stepping into your moxie. So here we go with Alexia Vernon.
All right. I am always so excited when I get to talk with Alexia Vernon because she is such a wonderful person to hang out with, and she will totally inspire people around her to step into their moxie. And I'm even more excited to get to share her with everybody who is listening to the Craft of Coaching podcast today, because she has a new book out. It's called Step Into Your Moxie, Amplify Your Voice, Visibility, and Influence in the World. And on today's podcast, I'm super excited because I know that a big thing that we are asking our clients to do is figure out how to amplify their voices, their visibility, have more of an influence and impact in their own lives and in the world. And this book is all about how to really do that. So Alexia Vernon, thank you so much for being on the Craft of Coaching podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel truly like you are a sister from another mister in so many ways. So I can only imagine where we're going to go. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's like that immediate, hey, do you want to hang out? Hey, let's have a 2-hour dinner. Let's just go from there. Yeah, because we've done that. And just hang out and talk life and business and motherhood and having kids and all that good stuff. So I was thinking that one of the things that can be really difficult for a client is recognizing those places where she's been holding herself back, and she's been in the driver's seat of that choice. And so I thought I would start out by asking, you run long-term programs, you've worked with people one-on-one. I mean, you have even worked with the Obama White House's Office of Public Engagement. So you have a really impressive resume and a lot of experience, both in your own personal life with stepping forward, being heard, and really getting that visibility, really saying there's an empowerment and an influence that I can step into, and helping others to do the same. And I wondered if you'd start off by identifying and speaking into some of the places that you've seen clients typically struggle with even getting into that process.
I want to first acknowledge that, like many coaches, I often find myself in the role of being my client. And
Right.
What I mean by that is I have been that person who has been so close to my circumstances that I haven't seen what my coach or what everyone around me is probably seeing. And I always try to remember that as a coach when I have one of those moments with a client and I'm thinking, how does she not see it? Or in some cases, because I do occasionally coach some men, how does he not see it? And I'll usually ask a question that is really simple as a way in to see if I throw a bone, is she or he going to catch it, before putting out a slightly more sophisticated food buffet, if you will. So one of those questions I might ask is, when you see yourself a couple of years from now, what will you have been able to let go of?
Mm-hmm.
And that may not sound like the most obvious question to ask. Like, why not go into what's holding them back? But usually, if I give somebody an opportunity to start to explore what some of the stuff that's fallen away, it becomes an entry point into discussing, so what are we clinging a little bit too tightly to? Because that's often what it is it's a control thing. Or what are we not giving ourselves permission to desire? Like, those questions I love, but sometimes I try to do the forward action. Where has there been some release, some surrender? Now, the other thing I want to offer for you when you're thinking about your clients is, when you get them to start talking, how can we sometimes resist that tendency to keep wanting to ask another question and give them time to work themselves through something big with a statement like, tell me more, or a very small question, what else, or this is good, keep going. Because I don't know about you, Kate, but like, when I've had moments as a client, like with one of my coaches, and they've just stopped talking, even if I really want them to ask me something and it's all about me, I'll usually go there if I'm coachable. And if I'm not, at this stage, I'm almost always coachable. Otherwise, I postpone my coaching call because I don't want to be put time with them. But yeah, that's my starting point. Answer to that question.
Well, I love that. And I can relate as well, because in our coach training program, we actually have a segment when people complete their portfolio for portfolio review, graduating from the program. There's a segment where they address the skill set of silence in the coaching session that they evaluate. And I think that what you're speaking to in that is, in not pushing to ask one question after another question after another question, you as coach are allowing for more silence, allowing for more space. And what happens? What fills in that space? The client's voice, their visibility, their desire to influence. That's like exactly what you're trying to help the client with as an outcome. And I hear you saying that you're building it into the actual structure of the session.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Okay. So I feel like one of the biggest ways that the coaching industry has, well, let me say it a little differently. I feel like one of the biggest areas where the coaching industry needs to grow is in connecting the collective to the personal. And in your book, you are really presenting a new paradigm for feminism, one that addresses patriarchy and oppression, yet is also making space for an individual women's empowerment. Would you talk a little bit about what that new paradigm is? And we'll see how far we get with that. And my next question, just so you know, is going to be, well, how can a coach integrate that into a client session? Because there's such a tendency to think, oh, coach is coming or client is coming for coaching. It's about their personal journey. And I know you well enough to know that you see something broader. So that's why I wanted to ask about, what is your new paradigm for feminism? And then how can a coach integrate that into personal growth work?
I don't think anyone has asked me these questions before, and I'm thrilled that you did, because before the book, there was a TEDx talk called A New Paradigm for Feminism, which was exactly about this. So as a little bit of background, prior to hanging out my shingle as a coach, my undergraduate degree was in women's studies. I was an adjunct professor of women's studies. I was a self-proclaimed feminist from the time I was 18 or 19 years old on. And if somebody had told me up until I was probably 25, 26 years old that I would ever be in the self-improvement world, I would have laughed at them. And I'm not proud of that. But for me, being a feminist meant that you used your power and privilege to flip the bird to patriarchy, to find grassroots ways on the ground to mobilize women, and not just other white women like you, but to try to bring women together and to elevate voices of all kinds of women, irrespective of gender identity, sexual orientation, race, certainly class, and so forth. And that this whole idea that as individual women, we should have to like find our happiness was just hogwash, because it was all these institutionalized things that were creating oppression. So with that in mind, by the time I was a little bit more than a quarter of a way through my life, I started to realize that I was that stereotype of a feminist. I was angry about so much in the world. I was chronically pissy with my friends, in my relationship with my significant other. And I was under earning, and I owed more in student loan money than I made in the course of a year. I lived in New York City. I had rats and cockroaches in my apartment, and I was not capitalizing on all this lauded potential and education I'd received. And so then I went the other direction for a long time. Not that I ever stopped calling myself a feminist, but I definitely started reading the self-improvement books. Gabby Bernstein became one of my first mentors. I got certified as a coach after I did my own coaching program as a participant. And I started to think, what if women's empowerment is actually about giving individual women the tools that they need to be able to go out into the world, not only on behalf of themselves, but to have a social cause that is like driving them in the world? And what if by filling their own buckets a little bit better, they could take on the important work of smashing the patriarchy, among other things? But I kept a lot of that to myself, my deeper why, because I felt like there was something anti-self-improvement about that. And it wasn't until probably a decade or so into my business where I realized I want to be unapologetically feminist and be unapologetic about my beliefs about self-improvement. And I want to bring them together. So, I mean, at its purest, what I talked about in the TEDx talk, and I don't know if I say it quite directly in the book, is that a new paradigm for feminism is one that acknowledges everything that systematically needs to change and make space for individual women's empowerment so that they can be a part of making those systematic changes.
Mm-hmm. And you and I are very aligned in that. The phrase that I will use sometimes is, you can't draw from an empty well.
Yeah.
Like if I mean, we can do this from an energetic perspective. So if my resilience is really depleted, then I literally will not have the energy, the physical stamina to march, to call, to get my thoughts together when I see something online that I know is wrong, and I want to speak up and be a counter will voice to whatever is being proposed. But then it's also, you can't draw from an empty well in the sense of mindset. So, I mean, I can speak from my own perspective that, when I was much, much younger, I grew up around a lot of people who kind of just went, poor people are basically lazy and they don't make the right choices. And if I have not invested in any understanding of myself, where I was conditioned to believe that, why I was conditioned to believe that, and then to even navigate the pain of finding out that it's not true, then I'm never going to grow as a person. And I don't get me wrong, and I want to, not you, but anyone listening to this, I wouldn't want either you, Lex, or me to be misunderstood on this point, because I know that you and I are not talking about like trickle down self-help. Which is like trickle down economics is like a flawed economic theory. And so is trickle down self-help of like, I need to help myself first before I can ever be of benefit to anyone else. I think they can happen on parallel tracks, and that what you learn from going into the collective can feed you as an individual. What you learn as an individual can feed the collective.
Yes. And it might be useful for me to mention that when I was that adjunct women's studies professor, my main gig, where I was really under earning, was in the nonprofit space. And I worked for an amazing educational theater company that worked with teachers and social workers and youth development professionals in the prisons, with people doing like soul work, not that they would have ever called it that, but like really elevating communities in need. And I had never seen so many broken people who were, it always felt one cold away from like total collapse.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that first prompted me to want to look at, I mean, I wouldn't have called it self-care back in the day, but like I am headed down a path where I'm not going to be able to be in this game for very long if something doesn't shift. And I mean, I'm definitely a highly sensitive person. Throughout my life, I've been that person who's had weird diagnoses that the even the Western, neither the Western or Eastern worlds truthfully ever understood, although the Eastern world at least could provide some healing and treatment for. Like, I just knew if I want to use my voice to speak up and out in the world, whatever my professional life looks like, I have to figure out a way to take better care of myself, to earn in a way. And, you know, I think money is incredibly triggering for people, both in the coaching world and certainly in feminism. But if I'm talking about a better distribution of wealth, why am I feeling so dang guilty about earning money myself? Like, that just doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that. I see that. So let's pivot a little bit to like a client is in a session. Let's say that she's that hypothetical. I love learning by example, which is why I'm going to pull in a hypothetical example.
Cool.
Let's say that the client you're working with is someone working at that nonprofit job where it's just like, if, you know, they're so overworked that it just feels like they are one cold away from a breakdown. And, you know, what is an intervention for someone who's navigating that? Because I definitely know that I mean, I feel like overwhelm and this exact scenario that we're talking about is the most prevalent coaching issue that I see. I can't think of a single client I've ever worked with who's like, you know, I'm really good. I don't feel like I have too much to do for the amount of time that I have. That's all good. It's just this other thing I need help with. It's like,
Yeah.
no, no, like everybody needs some help in this area.
Although I will say, and there is a commonality here, I have a few women in my mastermind this year who are genius in terms of having enough time, enough energy. Like, I've never once heard them complain. And they're doing amazing work in the world. But in 2/3 of the cases, they also don't have children. Now, that could send us off in a completely different direction about, you know, how do you integrate children without making it an excuse for putting your own needs at the bottom of your to-do list. I know we're not going there right now, but to your example, so it's interesting because with the coaching that I do as a speaking coach, I don't usually have people these days in traditional jobs who are sort of coming to me in that capacity, although I definitely have somebody in a traditional job who's a leader. They're usually coming to me talking more specifically about their public speaking or their negotiation or what have you. But what I did say when I used to get those kinds of situations, somebody was not creating her own situation through her work. Meaning, as an entrepreneur, the way I would handle it is very different in terms of what does your business look like. But when it's somebody who has a job, like, I get that you can, and I would ask a question like, what are the opportunities available to you to be able to shift your experience of what this is like?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would really go from there, because if they owned, you know, I'm on a bunch of other committees I don't need to be on right now while I'm working on this big project. And that would be a lot of it. Like, they'd be in a particular season where things were a little too tight. So it might mean taking a sabbatical from a board position, or it might mean that for a period of time they drop their ballroom class or whatever it is. But then if they said, you know, honestly, I feel like nothing is in my control. I can change my story. I can do all of the stuff to change my experience of it, sort of, but like, I still am going to have a boss who's verbally abusive. Obviously, these are all hypotheticals. I am still going to be expected to work 60 to 70-hour work weeks, weekends, and so forth. Like, that would sometimes be the material reality. So then I would ask a follow-up question. So given that, what is it that you really want?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and let them go from there. Like, and, you know, I supported a lot of people to leave their jobs, and that wasn't my intention. But if you can't fundamentally change the culture of your organization, then it comes time to make a decision. Do you want to be a part of that, or do you not? And one of the things I'm most proud of as a coach from the time where I did a lot in career transition was helping people not leave the world and just go hang out their own shingles and entrepreneur, but stay in the social change space and look for an organization and look for leadership where the values that lived within that organization's four walls were the same values that lived on the outside of that organization's four walls. Meaning, for any person who's been in the social change space, it's very easy to want to do and be everything for our people and to have one value set. But for the leaders of that organization to not actually have the same boundaries, the same respect for their own people.
Well, and I'm seeing something in here too. You know, Step Into Your Moxie is all about how do you really step into your voice, step into your visibility, make some kind of an impact. And, you know, it's like, okay, if I'm going to have to be in this job for really, how can I use the job as the vehicle for how I step into my voice or make this impact? That becomes the essential mindset.
Yes. And recognizing that it's not an either or. It's not, I do this work and that's what allows me to step into my moxie. That's a piece of it. And then how can you step into your moxie as a person who shows up to that work and to your life each and every day?
Absolutely. Well, Lex, I have so loved having you here. And I know that these, you know, questions alone of how coaches can help their clients step into a bigger space are going to be a lot to chew on for many, many coaching sessions. And I really am so appreciative of you stopping by to lend some of your value and your expertise to the craft of coaching. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we go? Anywhere we can find you online?
Sure. So for folks who are recognizing that as coaches, they want to be a little bit more intentional about their public speaking and use that as a way to be able to access their clients, they can find out more. I've got an open Facebook group called the Spotlight Speakers Salon. Then across social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'm Alexia Vernon. Try to keep it really simple. And then for those who check out my book, Step Into Your Moxie, I would love to hear what you take away.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just the best. The best part of getting a book out into the world is like getting to see how people really use the material and getting those, you know, book selfies of people going like, I'm really diving into chapter 2 or, you know, whatever they're doing. So everybody hashtag it up and
Step into your moxie. And if you find that you're putting things into action within our own community, we have a hashtag Acts of Moxie where people can share what are ways that they're using their voice in the world.
All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.